We recognize that CVUUS gathers on land seized from the Western Abenaki people by European colonizers. We respect the Abenaki's spiritual relationship to the land and waters of the Champlain Valley, and we are committed to building a peaceful and more just relationship with them, and to promoting knowledge about their history and culture. Good morning. And welcome to all of those of you in our sanctuary and anyone who may be on Zoom to CVUUS, the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. You're welcome here no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background. You're welcome to join us in community as we learn, live, and love together. If this is your first time with us, please sign the book in the lobby and you'll receive our monthly newsletter. Please also join us downstairs after the service for refreshments and conversation. I just want to say that I remember so well that Sunday in 2016 when I first came to CVUUS and was greeted and welcomed by Marnie Wood. I always remember that. I felt so welcome, and I know we believe in continuing that welcoming tradition. Each Sunday service is a little different. Services are led by one of our two part-time ministers, the Reverend Tricia Hart or the Reverend Christina Solari. They're also led by CVUUS congregants and invited speakers. So if anybody is having trouble hearing me, we do have some excellent hearing devices that you can pick up in the back from Richard. This would also be a great time, if you have not already done so, put those cell phones in worship mode. And if anyone has a yellow card, these are to if you want to share a milestone or a passage or a joy or a concern with the congregation, you can pick one up in outside if you haven't already done so, and put it in the in with the collection, with the offering. These cards are fairly new. They are for our caring committee. If you have something that you would, a personal need that you'd like to reach out for, these pink cards are also in the front, and there's a place for you to put those should you need one. My name is Rebecca Strum. I'm a member of this congregation and of the worship team, and this morning I'm delighted to serve as worship associate for the Reverend Tricia Hart. There are many pathways in addition to Sunday services to make connections, and you'll hear about these in our monthly newsletter, our weekly email blast, in our printed order of service, on the screen. Today, I'm excited to remind you that there are two pretty amazing musical opportunities, ways to connect musically. The Opera Company of Middlebury will be here in this space for a special youth singer concert, and that's at 2 p.m., not 1 p.m. as was in the blast. So it's a great chance to hear rising voices. And then at 5 p.m., the Middlebury Community Chorus Concert under the direction of the brilliant Ronnie Romano will be presented at in Robinson Hall at the Mahaney Center at the college. Today, yes, two musical opportunities today to connect. So many thanks to our tech team, Margie Young, Carl Lindholm, Richard Hopkins, the Zoom social host, Steve Butterfield, our choir, the flower buds for beautiful seasonal decorations. They are gorgeous. I noticed the beautiful ones on the tables downstairs, and they're really surrounding us with holiday cheer. Thanks to Catherine Schloff for getting our tree Brett Millier and Carrie Duquette Hoffman for greeting the Timmons family, and Lori Mayville for covering social hours, and others who helped step up today. So now please rise in body or spirit for our gathering song number 226, In the Gray, People Look East.
Okay, well, we fixed it. I promise we won't do a variation on that every week. But I'm grateful to Bob House and the Facilities Committee who have begun the work of figuring out how to make it just a little bit safer to stand up on the orange crate. The call to worship today is from the work of Joanna Macy. Remember Joanna Macy? Her own description of her work was an eco-philosopher and a Buddhist teacher. And she wrote this: "Is it my imagination to think that we have been chosen to live at a time when the stakes are really high? At a time when everything we've ever learned about interconnectedness, about trust, about courage can be put to the test? Every anguish, betrayal, disappointment can help prepare us for the work of healing. If the world is to be healed through human efforts, I am convinced it will be by ordinary people, people whose love for this life is greater than their fear, people who can open to the web of life that called us into being." Let us light our chalice.
So, do I still have sound? So join with me. The words to the chalice lighting are in your order of service and on the screen. The chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Rabbi, teacher, wonderful counselor, Lamb of God, light of love, anointed one, word and bread of life, Son of God and woman, Emmanuel. Kindle our chalice today. Set our hearts ablaze with your pure and radical love. Help us to a faith that can heal the sick and feed the hungry masses. Be with us now. Help us to welcome the refugee, to stave off the slaughter of innocents. Show us your mercy. Help us to see that for the smallest and humblest, the least of these burns the brightest star.
Good morning. Good morning. There we go. So the interesting thing about traditions is that you don't always know when you have started one until you get years down the road and then realize, oh, this is a tradition now. So what the kids do here with ornaments is one of those things. It started 10 years ago, where we just made ornaments and stuck them on the tree, and the kids made anything. I don't remember if we even sold them that first year. And quickly it turned into a thing where we decided the kids wanted it to be a fundraiser. So every year the kids make ornaments over in RE, kids of all ages, and some of the adults also who come help. And then we sell them before and after worship until they run out. And this year it is a fundraiser for the Charter House Coalition, Charter House Emergency Shelter. And I feel like I saw Tom come in somewhere. Tom's in the foyer. That's fine. This is another one of those funny things where I asked the kids, what do you want to raise money for this year? And some of them said, we really want to do something to help homeless and houseless people. I said, great, and felt like the Charter House Emergency Shelter was what made the most sense. So we went with that, and I did it without talking to anybody else and getting coordinated. And then I found out it didn't even matter, because it turned out that the donee of the month in December is the Charter House Coalition, which does more than just run the shelter. And I hadn't talked to Tom yet, who just waved his hand, and I thought it really would have been smart of me to contact Tom and say, hey, we want to raise money for this. So Tom, now I'm just telling you this. Because Tom works as part of that coalition. So it's just kind of beautiful synergy or something that all happened, I think. So I really encourage you to go look at the ornaments and consider buying some. Some people buy them every single year and have them on their tree for years and years, and we always pull a couple out to do the same thing. So the other tradition is that we start decorating our tree together as a congregation. So in just a moment, we will get some decorating music, and people who want to are encouraged to come up. Decorations are over there on the table, and there's also some here, and there's also some here. And we're not going to decorate the whole thing right now because it would take too long, but the idea is do one or two and just kind of get it started. And once you've done one or two and it looks like we're kind of thinning out up here, we'll bring down the music, and then the kids will leave. And then we can finish decorating it after worship. You are always welcome the entire month, as long as the tree is up, to add ornaments. Sometimes people bring them from home. Just know if you do that, you should assume that they are living here forever, because you never know if you'll get them back. The other thing I want to mention that we also do is memory ribbons. This is one of my favorite parts of this. So we have ribbons, and again, you can do this at any time, including in a second. People come up and write on them names of beloved people or animals that are no longer with us, and tie them to the tree in some way. And then when we take down the tree, I take all the ribbons that have been used and do a little ceremonial burying thing with them. Just because that seems right. So I guess that is it. If you are someone for whom it is hard to get up here, and I'm very aware that we have steps, and that because of the tree this year, I moved the chairs in front of the ramp, you have a couple choices. One choice is I am very happy to move that chair for you if you want to come up the ramp. The other choice is I can bring over ornaments to you and you can pick one. There's a lot of possibilities. So if for whatever reason you'd like a little help with moving or ornaments or something like that, just I'll be looking around in a little wave, and I'm seeing a few people already who waved, so thank you. Questions? I think that's it, my friends. So let's decorate. So no rush. Okay, so in a moment, we will be singing the kids over to religious exploration next door. The older kids are already there, so the grades 4 through 8 kids who are in the Crossing Paths group are there. They're the group that learns about many different faiths and religions besides ours. So they're getting introduced to Catholicism today, and next Sunday they'll be going to visit St. Mary's during Advent time, hopefully with lots of candles and lights and greens and all those good Christmassy things. And the younger kids are going to be decorating the Fen House, and we're really trying to live into our new, it's funny to call it a new covenant because I feel like we've already been living it, but the covenant that we adopted last year about fighting racism and other oppressions and building beloved community, also sometimes called the 8th principle. So as we do decorations, we're trying to think about inclusivity and who might come into the space in December. There's a lot of holidays that take place in December, right? Hanukkah, solstice, Christmas. There's a Buddhist one too. Kwanzaa. What's the Buddhist one? Rohansu. Is that the birthday? Buddha's birthday? Oh, enlightenment. Yeah. More important than the birthday, although I guess if the Buddha hadn't been born, there wouldn't have been enlightenment. So anyway, that's what we're going to go do. So we're going to sing the kids out to what we've been singing for a while. Peace, salam, shalom. So peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Those are the only words. So I'll invite you to rise in body or spirit and sing from the heart and really try to feel the singing of the community around you. One of the beautiful, amazing things about singing is that when people sing together, their hearts actually will move toward trying to line up heartbeats, which is just amazing, I think.
And that is that this December, like many before it, there will be an opportunity for the people of this congregation to contribute to a fund that is for holiday staff bonuses, all of the part-time staff. So the actual collection of that's going to happen more formally next Sunday. I'm just telling you this now to let you know, and to let you know that it is very possible to contribute to that fund online as well. It's very possible to contribute to many of the funds of this congregation online. And the QR code, which is right here, if QR codes are your thing, are a way that you could access that. So I was going to introduce Charterhouse as the beneficiary for December, and Poppy kind of did that for me, which is a wonderful thing, and I'm glad to know that the ornaments are also going to contribute to that. So the website's wonderful, Tom. The website for Charterhouse is really wonderful. I don't know very much about a whole lot of things, so I do things like check out websites. I want to encourage you to visit the website yourself, which might encourage you to visit and volunteer at Charterhouse. Who knows? I just want to read to you a couple of lines from the mission of this wonderful organization. Everyone deserves a roof over their head. Everyone has the right to not be hungry. Everyone deserves a chance to thrive in a community of genuine human connections. Everyone has these basic human rights, including our neighbors with mental illness, abusive family backgrounds, substance use disorder, or just plain bad luck. Everyone. And you and I and all of us have a chance today to contribute to the work of this wonderful organization in a shared offering, as we do every week. This morning's offering will now be most gratefully received. Because you can't even swear at them. You know, I don't mean me swearing at, I mean them swearing at us for not telling them the details. So my thanks to all of you and your flexibility. The generosity of this congregation is embodied in the sharing of your resources, your gifts, and your money, and also in very much in the way that you share yourselves with each other. And we mark that every week by singing together and rising and looking at each other one time through before we sing, just to make connection. If you see somebody that you think might be new, just give them an extra smile. Please rise.
It has been a week of living, a week of happiness and sadness, joys and concerns, milestones and passages. Elio Farley writes, anyone who can do de-escalation, join Elio for a de-escalation and protest safety training this Wednesday, 4:30 to 6 p.m. at Weybridge House. There will be snacks. And from Josh. Josh writes, I am so grateful to UUs for sharing this space with the 30-plus radical Jews who prayed and yearned for a ceasefire in Gaza. It was so holy that it happened in this beautiful interfaith community space last Friday. Thank you, Josh. Amen. And Lois Alberts reaches out via email, and she writes, thank you so very much for the many cards and calls in remembrance of Bob Alberts. We have felt very comforted and supported by the CVUUS community. Bob and Lois have been longtime members, mostly joining via Zoom from Eastview for the past few years. Lois used to maintain the bulletin boards in fine style, posting a clipping whenever a CVUUS member appeared in the Addison Independent. I know that all of us here at CVUUS are holding you in our hearts, Lois. And Reverend Tricia will lead us in a time of reflection.
So I would invite you all into a moment, a couple of moments together of reflection, of stillness, of prayer, of just pausing for a moment, whatever is your tradition and custom. Starting with a breath. It can seem these days as if we are being pulled apart by all of the needs and questions and crises that we're living in. It can seem as if we are pulled apart and can't figure out which way to look, what thing to feel. And yet, it's possible to just close our eyes and stick our fingers in our ears and turn all of our devices off. Not a bad idea sometimes. But other times, I think the answer may be to focus on one. In your heart, in your mind, for a few moments to focus on one. One beloved person in your life for whom you wish only good things. You can hold them in the light. You can also call to mind one person you will probably never meet, but who right now is living amid fear and violence and hunger. To feel as well as we can what that might be like and hold it at a distance in your body, in your heart and mind. And hold that person in the light. Let us rest for a moment in the quiet we make and notice what our hearts are open to.
lovely. Thank you. There is a concept in mystical Judaism which is sometimes referred to as the raising of holy sparks. The idea, which dates from the 16th century in the teaching of Isaac Luria, is that everything, every person, every being, every structure and element of existence contains sparks of holiness. Sparks that were dispersed from their rightful place at the center, the source of divine awareness, God's intention. Not only dispersed, the holy sparks are mixed in with and hidden by the husks of life, the denser levels of consciousness. Our task as human beings, as God's agents in the world, is to release each spark from its shell and to raise it up so that all the holy sparks may return ultimately to their original state. Sparks are raised through acts of loving kindness, of being and acting in harmony rather than in conflict with the universe. When we raise holy sparks, we participate in nothing less than Tikkun Olam, repair of the world.
So the story that Becky just talked about raising holy sparks, is not complicated. Students ask their, sorry, that's the story she didn't read. I gave her 2 of them, and she chose the Holy Sparks one, and that's wonderful, and I'm going to tell you the other one. Sorry. So in this story, there are students, and they're gathered with their rabbi, and they ask their rabbi, their teacher, how God can allow so much evil and cruelty in the world, and how they can defeat the cruelty and the corruption of the world. And the rabbi helps them to learn that fighting is never as effective as faith. What he does is he tells them to go down into the dark of the basement and to bring with them brooms and to try to sweep the dark, sweep the badness, sweep the cruelty, the dark, out of the dark. So they look at him a little funny, but then they do that. They go downstairs into the basement and they sweep and nothing changes. And so they come back up to the rabbi and they say, that didn't work. Do you have any other ideas? And of course, there are 3 times, because there are always 3 in these stories. The second time, the rabbi tells them to go down into the darkness and to take sticks with them. So to really beat the darkness back and see if they can create some light in the midst of it. And that doesn't work either. And the third time, the rabbi says, go down and shout at it. Shout as loud as you can. Make noise. See if we can make the darkness just affected at all by the power of our voices and our anger. And they do that. And they come back upstairs and say, that didn't work either. They're a little concerned by this time about their rabbi. It's it's possible that he's getting a little elderly. But the rabbi says, okay, one more time. Go down into the darkness again and take with you a single light. Take with you a candle. And they do. And that one small light vanquishes the darkness. As I try to understand it, the point of this story is to say that life doesn't have to be brutal and terrifying and unjust. Just like the story of the holy sparks, there are holy sparks among us, hidden. Our job is not to despair of all the stuff that covers them up, but to attempt to find them and breathe life into them. We are not powerless. Believing in the possibility of a better, more hopeful life for everyone, the darkness of hatred and ignorance and fear can be overcome, these stories teach, by a small beacon that is the goodness in one's own heart and mind. That's a pretty simple idea, but a pretty amazing one. We walk around in the world with a beacon. And that beacon helps people see the goodness in themselves and in others, and even one person's small light can be enough to inspire someone else. And then small flames can join together to light the world. It seems to me that this story is a good companion to the traditional Hanukkah story. Hanukkah starts in a few days. The story about Judah the Maccabee and his sons and the other fighters who defeated the terrible army of the terrible Assyrian Antiochus. Antiochus and his men were occupiers of the land of the Maccabees and the Jewish people, and they defiled the sacred temple and the rituals of the Jewish people over many, many years. And finally, they were defeated, the Assyrians, the story says, and they left. And the Maccabees relit the flame of the holy lamp, which is the sign of God's presence. You know the story. There's only one day's supply of sacred oil, and miraculously the lamp burns anyway for 8 days, which is long enough to make more sacred oil. I think that all of these stories have the same message, that God is with us, however we understand God or goodness can prevail over cruelty. The story of the candle in the darkness is a bit of a corrective to the older legend, because the Maccabees armed themselves with violence and hatred, whereas the rabbi's students learn that shouting and fighting and hatred can never actually win. Not really, not for good. Real change comes through some illumination, through new hope and new ideas and new life. I've been thinking about the traditional Hanukkah story about the Maccabees and the lamp for longer than a quarter of a century, and trying to figure out how to preach about it. And it seems to me that the story, the miracle in the story, is interesting when you think about it, because it isn't all that spectacular. It could have been so much flashier. God might have restored the temple completely in one day. Or the Maccabees might have appeared suddenly completely invincible, so that Antiochus' army just ran away when they saw them. Or, along the lines of one of my favorite fantasies, maybe the hearts of the foreign invaders, the Assyrians, and the hearts of the wild-eyed patriots could have been opened by God, by wisdom, so that suddenly they knew one another as siblings, and they chose to stop fighting. But the miracle is not so dramatic. It's just one small light that burns and doesn't go out. If you think about it, people might not even have noticed at first, because they were busy, certainly, celebrating their victory, the Maccabees were, and cleaning up the trash in the temple and deciding what they could afford to replace right away and what would have to wait, and who would decide. You know how congregations are. Perhaps only one or two people realized that something was actually happening with the lamp. Maybe it was a child that saw it first. A flame is a small thing, even when it's holy. A miracle is easy to miss when it's right next to you. It's easy to find parallels between the Hanukkah stories and the Christmas ones. All of them celebrate the light that faith and love bring when the world is dark and life is terrible. And telling these stories every year encourages us to rededicate ourselves to compassion and love and joy. But there's something we don't always think about when we tell these stories, and that is the context that they were happening in and what had come before. Before the miracle of the holy flame in the temple were long, long years of pain and fear and catastrophe and war. Months and years of struggle against a large, powerful, well-organized force, an army that one imagines had enough food and weapons and maybe even uniforms, while the Maccabees hid out hungry and cold in the darkness of the hills. And the Christmas story? Before the happy ending with the shepherds and the wise men and all the wonderful carols we get to sing, were the days and weeks of Mary and Joseph's long, difficult, fabulously uncomfortable trip to Bethlehem. Just think about what that must have been like. I know it's a story, but you can think about it anyway. They were poor, they were alone, they didn't know what was going to happen when they got there. And then they found themselves in a stable with a bunch of animals and visitors who kept stopping by. So the stories say. Before the light and all around it, there is darkness. Before Christmas and solstice and the turning of the earth back toward warmth and light, there is Advent, the season of waiting. Advent in the Christian tradition lasts 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, as the dark and the cold deepen in our northern parts of the earth. So we light candles and flickering lights to illuminate our dark houses and streets and to wait for what's coming. As a child, I loved Advent because of what came at the end of it. Opening that last door on the Advent calendar, I think my siblings and I had long battles about who would get to do the 24th. Maybe it was just my family. And the magic of Christmas morning. But I have come to welcome Advent itself, perhaps because now I know the gift of preparation and of waiting, things that I've learned as a parent, as a minister, as a person. Waiting isn't just something we have to get through, shut your eyes, hold your breath, hope it'll be over soon. The context, the living through the preparation is as important as the celebration itself, perhaps even more so. And this is what religion keeps reminding us through the stories in their different ways, from their different traditions. The message is life happens most often not amid happy endings, but in the despair and the fear and the loneliness and the grief and the generosity and faith and love that saves us. So the world is full of darkness, so deep, so disorienting, but not for us, right? Those of us who are relatively safe and relatively lucky. That bad stuff feels like somebody else's context. And sometimes it all comes really close. Last Saturday, 3 young men were shot as they took a walk in a neighborhood in Burlington on Thanksgiving weekend. Hisham Awartani, Kinad Abdel Hamid, Tassin Ali Ahmad are their names. They've been friends since first grade. So many things about this story have made me cry this week, but that somehow, in remembering what my oldest son's meeting his best friend for the rest of his life, the first day of first grade, that's what came to mind. They grew up and they went to school in Ramallah, in the West Bank, and then they came to the United States to go to college, to study, and because here they would be safer. And on Saturday they were shot by a stranger because they were talking in Arabic as well as English, because 2 of them were wearing a scarf, the kafia, which shows solidarity with the Palestinian people. Who knows why? I heard it first in the sanctuary when Becky read the yellow cards last week, and Josh told us this story. I hadn't heard it before, and I was shocked, because this happens in other places, but not in Vermont, right? Not Burlington, and certainly not on a street that I went down every single day as I was going to work in Burlington for the last 4 years. On Sunday, the police in Burlington arrested a man for shooting them. And on Monday evening, I read a letter that had gone out from the minister and the director of operations and the board chair at the First CVUUS Society in Burlington, telling people that the shooter was a person known to that congregation. Not just known, but a person who had, until very recently, been a volunteer in a program at that church, a very visible program. And on Tuesday, I started hearing, after the pictures of the shooter were in the newspaper and his name, I began hearing from lay leaders here at CVUUS who recognized that he had been a part of this congregation too, for a while, for several years, on and off. Longer than he was in Burlington, in fact. He's from this area. He grew up, he went to high school in Middlebury. Where are you, Hannah? He came to this building. He was here among us. So today, in this time of preparation and waiting, I am confused. What does this story teach us? I have no idea if there will someday be something that looks like a happy ending or even a clear meaning, and I do not want to give the perpetrator of yet another act of violence by gun, a person who acted out of hate, more attention than the victims of his attack. But this story seems to require our attention to what we here at CVUUS and in Burlington and everywhere in Unitarian Universalism in the past or in the future, how we think about radical welcome. How much do we actually mean it? The UU Society in Burlington, during the years that I was there, had the honor of working with them, developed and began living out a deep commitment to being a place of welcome and love without judgment. And they welcomed this man among them for a time. And today, they're wrestling with the fact that that choice might have been dangerous to the congregation that they loved. And that all of this is real. And that he's still a person with inherent worth and dignity, and we are called to love. Of course, none of this is an excuse. I have no sympathy for his actions or for anyone who decides to take another person's life, even as part of a struggle, a perceived struggle for justice. But what about his context, the challenges in his life? I keep thinking about his mother. And I wonder, what was he looking for when he came here and to other Unitarian Universalist churches, apparently several of them? What was he looking for? And did he find it? So what does it mean to radically welcome the stranger without judgment? What does it mean to act out of that kind of faith in a time when rampant, virulent hatred is being stoked against those from another place, those who practice a religion, Islam, Judaism among them, which some consider dangerous? What does it mean for us to be alive in the time of hatred stoked by the media and by fear itself and by our culture amid a clash of religious and political agendas? I think that's our question. And my question to you is, how do you want this church to show up in this time? In this story, but much longer, more than that too. What are we called to say and do to speak against hate and for love and peace and understanding? Really. I'm confused, and I imagine that some of you are too, and I want to invite any of you who feels like talking more about this today to hang out up here after the service. I understand that it is not a terrible sin to bring coffee into this beautiful room, so if you want, go get a cup of coffee or tea and bring it back here, and we'll talk just for a few moments together, if you want. The religious message of Advent is to wait, to prepare for something good. And it is hard to know right here and right now how we could reasonably be waiting for anything good. But this is the world that we live in, filled with holy sparks. This is the world we are charged to see and understand as it is, and to believe, to have faith that it can be better, wiser, more just, more loving. And that in small ways, and maybe not so small, our light, our love can help to bring that about. So our Advent message, there is goodness in the world. There is goodness in us and in our communities and in all the people around us. And this goodness, this is the point, doesn't belong to us. It's not for us to keep. It's for us to spend, to give away to the world. So let us wait with anticipation, preparing that which is best in us to be manifest in the world. So may it be. So may it blessed be. And let us sing. Ronnie and I were talking about this carol, this hymn that we're inviting you to sing. It's number 225 in your gray hymnal if you want to look at the music. O come, Emmanuel. This was, as far as we know, as old as the 9th century of the Common Era. And it has been translated from the Latin many times. So if you really dislike this set of words, that's okay. Sing the ones that you know. But let us sing together. benediction today is from the work of Kent Nerburn, who lives in Minnesota and has spent much of his life and career in close contact with Native peoples in that part of the country. He writes, "We are not saints. We are not heroes. Our lives are lived in the quiet corners of the ordinary. We build tiny hearth fires, sometimes barely strong enough to give off warmth. But to the person lost in the darkness, our tiny flame may be the road to safety, the path to salvation. It is not given us to know who is lost in the darkness that surrounds us, or even if our light is seen. We can only know that against even the smallest of lights, darkness cannot stand." Go in peace.